21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
I see this in all organizations, but I see it also with us entrepreneurs, this element of we're not doing the real human essential skills well. Because we kind of haven't, many of us haven't been taught them. And especially as entrepreneurs, in which you're a leader, we wear so many hats at the beginning, and we're doing so many things that we're not necessarily good at, but we have to do it at the beginning, and then we eventually hopefully bring on that team and things like that. But there's an element of like, are you actually taking care of yourself in a way that helps you live out that dream that you actually started your business for? Right? It just, there's an element of what does your wholehearted, holistic life look like? And so for me, like, courage is really about that. I have 5 pathways of courage, and it's about these skills, tools, and language of how to live out who you are well, how to navigate life well, how to live and lead connected and well. And I think especially as entrepreneurs, dang if that's not so hard. Like, it's really hard. And even if you're not in the beginning of your entrepreneur journey, like, you're going to have those different seasons. And we tend to never put ourselves, the care of ourselves first. And I'm going to come back every single time. And it's my therapeutic background, because I'm a therapist by trade. You cannot give what you do not have. Like, you can't. And so, especially if we cannot create this chaos around us and expect us to be able to build the dream and be happy. Eventually, we have to really lean into these skills, which are really the human essential skills that they're often called the soft skills, right? Like, anytime I go into a big organization, I'm on that track of the soft skills. And I always tell people that it is these soft skills that are going to help you actually navigate that team member that's really struggling with the fear of AI. Right? Or the generational issues that we're having in the workplace, or creativity and innovation. Like, it's born here first, caring for ourselves. I am actually an author, speaker, corporate trainer. However, therapist by trade. So I was one of those people that I was the psych major the whole way because of my life experience and things like that. I went into psychology, got the graduate degree in community counseling. I started my career in working with clients who struggle with substance abuse for years. And then I kind of stumbled into working with clients who struggle with eating disorders. And that's when I was in graduate school. And then I went into private practice for 11 years and really kind of just helped everyday people with the life stuff, anxiety, depression, but just also communication and relationship issues and work problems and stress. I mean, I remember I had one client that he would come into my office and all we would process is how annoyed he was at traffic. And I finally said, like, I would give him like activities to do on the drive. And I was like, because you're not willing to change your appointment time, so you will always be stuck in traffic getting here. What is in your control? Only how you think, feel, and behave. That's it. And so if you're not willing to change when you come, what can you change on your drive here? Because processing your anger at the traffic is not processing what actually brought you in the door to therapy, right? And so eventually, 11 years in private practice, I loved my clients, and I miss them still. And I knew that I wanted to make a greater impact, right? I wanted to reach more people. And for me, especially entrepreneurship, being in private practice, like, you don't see a client, you don't get paid, right? And so it was kind of this fixed income in many ways. And even though I loved what I was doing and I loved my clients, I started hating going to the office. And so that was kind of like really my first nudge that I want to reach more people. And this doesn't feel aligned anymore. And so that's when my husband and I took that really big risk to close the thriving private practice and to focus on teaching workshops, keynotes, trainings, retreats, and things like that. And so that's now been 7 years ago. And I've built this really wild, amazing speaking business, training and working with different organizations to help them build cultures of courage at work. And really, and people will often ask me, like, how has it grown? And it has been not by grace, for sure. And also, like, it's been through relationship. It's been through word of mouth. It's been through choosing the people, choosing the connection over everything.
I'm back on my feet and I'm happier than ever, like I never thought forever was you. My skies are blue, dancing kind of weather, back together like I wasn't into.
And so it's been 25 years of helping people figure out how to human well. And so I have one organization, she was like, we just need to call you like the office therapist. She goes, except nobody would come to these workshops if we called it that. And I was like, yep, so we're going to call it Courage is Built Here, because that's what it is. It's courage. Courage is to live who you are, like to show me your heart, to tell me your story with your whole heart. And everyone loves, like, oh, that's such a buzzword, that sounds amazing. Except then the therapist part of me comes in and I'm like, people need to know how to do that. They need the skills, they need the tools, they need the language of how to live that out loud. And so that's where I came into. I taught another curriculum for a very long time, and I've launched my own curriculum called Courage is Built Here, because we often hear times, leaders aren't born, right? We learn, but it is Courage is Built Here. People will ask me, well, how come it's called that? And it is because courage is built. It is not, you're not born with it. Like, some maybe a little bit, but really it's these skills, tools, and language of learning how to do it. More than that, where is here? Well, courage is built here in your head, right? And the stories that you tell yourself. It is in growth mindset. It is not just in poop and rainbows and butterflies and toxic positivity. It's way more than that, but it is built here in our head, especially in the stories. It's also, though, built in our hearts, our guts, our souls, our spirits, whatever it resonates for you, but it's built there. But most of all, especially in the world that we're in right now, courage is built here between us. It's in connection, whether or not it's on a Zoom call, podcast interview, or it's on an online post, or it's in that meeting and a difficult conversation that you're needing to have with one of your team members. Courage is built in the hard and the holy moments between people, which means we have to turn back toward one another. And really, in order to do that, you have to turn back towards yourself first.
But you know what they say, time's got a good way of healing. I'm back to feeling I'm happier than ever, like I never thought forever was you. My skies are blue, dancing kind of weather, back together like I wasn't into.
Really, the best place to start is in my 5 pathways of courage. Like, Courage is Built Here includes 5 pathways of courage. Pathway 1 is to feel it all. How to feel our emotions and not be our emotions. And it begins with your values. Like, who are you? And our beliefs are not always our values. Some beliefs will become values, not always though. Also, our values are not our identity. They're part of our identity. But what roots you? What makes you do what you do? What makes you love in the way you love? What makes you lead in the way you lead? What are your values? How do those values show up in behavior? Who do you have in your life that calls you back into those values when they see that you're not doing great and you're not in alignment with them? Like, what are your symptoms that you're not doing great? And so, like, pathway 1, feel it all. It has to start from the foundation of values, because if you don't have that clarity of who you are and what roots you, you can't feel well. And then, of course, like, we have to talk about emotions. If at this point, I don't think anyone is blind to the fact that very few people are emotionally regulated. And then we're spewing that onto the internet or the team that we lead or our partner or spouse or children, right? And so what's it look like to feel your feelings well? You have to speak them. You got to name them. You actually got to know emotional literacy. You got to know that there's a lot of different kinds of happy. There's a lot of different kinds of mad. And what's it look like to name them and talk to someone who loves you well or leads you well about them? And more than that, how do you cope with them in a healthy way? Which does include moving your body to move them through. Otherwise, this stuff stays stuck and it's going to fester. And if we don't feel our feelings well, they will own us and they will define us. And so pathway 1 starts there. It builds that foundation. Pathway 2 is called Embody Again, how to take care of ourselves. Because one of the things that I've really learned being in the corporate space for 7 years now at this point is, 1, very few people are emotionally regulated, and 2, very few people are actually taking really good care of themselves. And this is going way beyond that. I mean, like, if you find a bath relaxing or a massage, fine, great. But this is beyond the Instagram self-care. My question is always, how do you show up and follow through for yourself? Because I know you're doing it for everybody else. How do you do it for you? What's it look like? Like, what's your morning look like to set you up for a good day? How do you wind yourself down before sleep? Like, how do you pause throughout different parts of the day? How do you have awe and wonder and delight in your day? Like, how do you show up and follow through for you? Because if you don't, the body is really wise. And the body keeps score. One of the best books ever. Hard book to read. Body keeps score. And the body will always, always win. So, and especially as entrepreneurs, there's always something to do. There will always be something urgent, if not emergent. What's it look like to say no? What's it look like to set boundaries? What's it look like to delegate, to elevate, to automate? Like, what's it look like to take care of yourself? So that's pathway 2. Pathway 3 is be fully you. How to show up authentically. And that is real. It is the skill set of vulnerability, which, so I have had a lot of people be like, ugh, the word vulnerability, don't love it. Like, but I love authenticity. And so I always tell people, like, okay, fine, you can call it authenticity on the proposal and the description, but in the room, you're going to learn that it's vulnerability. But it is that question of, how do you show up in all the spaces that you exist in? And I want you to show up, and I want to teach you how to show up as all of who you are, because really, 1, you deserve to be fully seen. 2, the world is in desperate need of seeing whole people. But 3, and most importantly, when you show up as all of who you are with people, more times than not, they will show up as all of who they are. And that's connection. And healing, growth, and change never takes place in disconnection. They only happen in connection. And so what does that authenticity look like? And I always tell people, like, one of the examples I give is, like, I walk into some really fancy rooms as a speaker. Like, many rooms, not super happy to see me. Like, we have a therapist as our facilitator. We're going to talk about feelings. And I always ask, like, what is the attire, right? I don't hide my tattoos anymore, though. I don't wear heels. My back hurts. I wear sneakers. Like, it always looks professional. It's my style, but, like, that's authenticity. Because if I showed up hiding parts of who I am, then you will hide yourself, and we won't be able to do this and walk in connection with it and through it. And so be fully you is, like, what's it look like to be you in all the spaces that you exist in? And we have to talk about that. Not every space is going to be brave or safe enough for you. Like, not every space has earned the honor of hearing your story or seeing all of who you are. It's for some of us more than others, especially. And the more I do this work, the more I am done allowing you to take my courage from me. And so it's not that I'm going to hide parts of who I am because you're not safe. It's more like, I'm going to be boundaried. Like, you're just going to get these parts, because these other parts, they're reserved for the people who love and lead me well, and who also show up as themselves. And so that authenticity, and we're yearning for connection, and that's only born of authenticity. And you can be a very vulnerable leader and your people still not know everything about you, your deepest, darkest secrets. That's not appropriate. It's not safe. Maybe you're just vulnerable with like how hard it is to lead these days, or to find the good, right talent, right? Or all of like dealing just with what it's like to be an entrepreneur and feel like you never can be off or finished. Those things. Maybe you're just vulnerable with that part of it, because that will create connection. And then you've got pathway 4. Pathway 4 I called love others well, which some people get real squishy about the word love, especially in work settings, corporate settings, or even like entrepreneurs. And for me, it comes back to love every time. And I always tell people, like, if that's too squishy of a word, that's totally fine. Just shift it to care, dignity, respect. This pathway, though, is really about how do you live with, how do you relate to, how do you lead other people well? And so it's born in the skill set of empathy. What's it really look like to be an empathic leader? And that does not mean that you agree with how everyone feels about everything. It also doesn't mean that you fully understand what they're going through, because that's actually really not that possible. It means that you seek to understand what they are going through. And more than that, when they tell you how they feel or what they're experiencing, you believe them, because it's their lived experience, not yours. Empathy is a really hard, and it's a catchword right now for leaders, and I think entrepreneurs too, like, because I'll hear things like a lot like, okay, fine, I want to be empathic and kind, and I just need people to do their damn job. Yep, I know. And you are more likely to get them to do their job when you meet them with care and compassion first, and empathy. Empathy and accountability are not mutually exclusive. They are actually extremely related to each other. In this pathway 4, though, we also really talk about like building and repairing trust. Right now, there's huge trust issues. I'm not sure anyone trusts anybody anymore at this point. And so we project that onto the people that we live with and love, and the people that we work with and lead. And relationships will always be rupture and repair over and over and over. And so we have to operationalize trust. We have to talk about it. We have to choose to build it. And it's built in the small moments of connection. And so it's learning those skill sets. And we have to talk about curiosity too. At this point, like we have lost our ability to be curious in many ways. And so some of it's just in language. Like when we're having really hard conversations, that's really one of the number one questions I get in events. Like, I need your help having hard conversations. Conflict feels everywhere. And I challenge people, like, did it have to be conflict? How long were you avoiding the hard conversation, and now it's conflict? Whereas before it was a tough conversation that, had you used curious language and actually talked about what you needed to talk about without holding on to it for weeks and weeks and weeks, that it didn't have to turn into the conflict part. And we often we'll tell ourselves, like, I don't want to have the hard conversation with somebody because I don't want to make them uncomfortable. And that is such a lie. I avoid the hard conversation because I cannot navigate my discomfort. That's why we start with the feelings at the very beginning. You got to navigate that. And then finally, pathway 5 is do the work. Or most days I will say, do the freaking work. So it comes back together, all to pathway but 1. You got to feel it. You got to take care of yourself. You got to be authentic. You got to love and lead others well. And most importantly, pathway 5 and do the work. We have to really acknowledge the stories that we live from. What are the stories that you tell yourself about yourself and other people, about the world? In the moment, when you're super triggered in emotion, what stories do you make up? Also, though, what I have found is that what holds people back the most are the old narratives, the ones that were born of the toughest seasons of your life. Those stories that have really worked deep grooves into your brain from some of those hard seasons. And so they come in to save the day when you're having a rough spot, except they're not true. And so we have to rewrite those stories. And so that's really living into this work. And so and it goes beyond, I'll tell people a lot, because I know like growth mindset's huge. And like, I know people love affirmations, and affirmations oftentimes like just, they sweep the floor. They don't get rid of the pests, right? Like the pests are always going to come back. And so like, what's it look like? I want you to remind yourself of those, like the affirmations or what is true, and brave, what I call courageous beginning stories. That takes practice though. You have to actually like practice that, which sometimes does require you to put it on sticky notes and practice those affirmations. And at the end of the day though, growth mindset and affirmation work, I do think it has an expiration date if you're not doing the actual foundational work of all the other stuff.
I was stuck running through emotions that you left behind. Put on that dress inside my closet that you never liked. Oh, I'm not saying you didn't hurt me at all, but it all falls away under the disco ball.
I'm part of an entrepreneurs organization. My account, I'm an accelerator. And so this is a conversation that we have a lot. I think as entrepreneurs, we're always like, scale, 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 revenue, revenue, revenue. And I sometimes get looked at funny because my mission reads to create a space where people remember how loved they are and then teach them how to live from that love. And my mission is, yes, I mean, I need the revenue, of course. But my mission is to reach more people. And to help people with these skill sets because they're just not getting them anywhere else. Or they feel like they're not accessible to them in a way that they can actually do them. And so that's why, like, yes, of course, I'd love to come to your organization and do a keynote or a full training, and we can package it in so many different ways. And I recognize, especially as entrepreneurs, you probably will not make the time to join me for a 3-day training in St. Louis, Missouri, right? Like, I would love for you to do that because it would change your entire life. And let's be realistic. So what's it look like? One of the ways to really build courage is to make it accessible to you. Like, make it easy. When we try to implement change in our lives, like, how long did I try to implement breath work in my life? And I avoided it because I was like, I don't have 20 freaking minutes to do it. Make it easy. Do the 5-minute one, right? And so one of the things I've really worked hard on is creating this suite of services. And so there's like, one of my favorite things that I've created is I have a courage deck. It's literally a deck of 60 cards of my favorite teaches. And like, I have people using it in their daily huddles every day. I have people using it as their journaling prompt. I have people using it at their dinner tables with their family. It's just a way to kind of be like, oh yeah, I remember that teach. Or like, dang, I'm going to pause just for a second and really walk this work out in an action. It needs to be in an action, in a behavior. I also, though, have I've written my book, like The Courage is Built Here book is there. That's more accessible. Of course, it's not the whole curriculum, but it's a great accessible way. One of my favorite things that I've created that's launching the week of July 7th is my on-demand, self-paced online course. And so I kind of describe it as like, it's a extra keynote, like almost 3 hours of video content. And if you actually do all of my self-reflection prompts in it, and you pause the video when I ask you to pause the video and think about it, you're going to spend a good probably 5 hours at your own pace going through these skills, tools, and language. Even better, do it with your team. Like I offer extra resources for teams and a discount if they do it as a team. And so it's this way to really make the work accessible instead of saying like, well, I'm never gonna, like, I just don't have time to do a 3-day training. I don't have time to read that book and she doesn't have it on Audible yet. Okay, fine. Get the deck or get the online course. And for me, I'm very excited for this launch for many reasons because it's my first online course that I'm launching and my community has really asked for that resource for a long time. But during that first week of launch, I'm going to donate a portion of the sales. We had a really big tornado here in St. Louis, Missouri, that hit in the middle of the city, a huge tornado that was on the ground for over 20 miles. And 3 weeks later, they are just really still struggling with rebuilding. And so I'm going to donate to my to those relief efforts because community is what this is about for me, and reaching people and reaching more people. If you want to find out more, everything's just my name. JustineFroelker.com is the website. That's where you can find my newsletter. You also get a free boundaries download when you join my newsletter. I'm also on all the social media platforms. I work really hard to share courage work on all the platforms. Again, just my name, Justine Froelker. I will say, if you go with Instagram, you're going to get more puppies and butterflies and birds if you follow my stories, but make no doubt, I will share that on LinkedIn too, because you will be surprised or not how much I can turn pretty much anything into a courage teach for people.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskarik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.